Hello and welcome inside the den here at Fox 5 Studios. I'm Mike Davis. We have a brand new edition of Dry Heat with Mike Davis right now, and I'm joined by one of my favorite people on earth. This guy is one of my go-to gurus, and guess what? This guy, four-time best-selling New York Times author. He's got a brand new book coming out in May. You got to go pre-order it right now, daveasprey.com. It's called Heavily Meditated. He's already cracked the code when it comes to biohacking, how to get abs, how to have all this great stuff from a physical appearance and how to have a body functioning at a high level. But now he's tackling something that I think is super duper important, and it's all about the mind. And Dave, it's so great to have you back here in the den. Dude, just from the beginning, could we talk? I know we gotta talk about the cover here, because look at this. I mean, you're turning 53 this year, and
Yep.
you're telling me this is not airbrush, this is not anything.
Nope. I got off a plane in Miami, went into the studio, and took the shots. I did some push-ups before the shot, to be honest. That's it. And here's the thing. I was a 300-pound computer hacker. The odds of me ever having any article of clothing besides a sock off in a magazine or a photo was zero. And to be able to just comfortably sit there and shoot that without diuretics and all that normal stuff, it's because I finally got my body working, but the body and the mind work in unison.
We're going to be diving into all this stuff. And yes, I think, I want to retrace your steps and give people a little bit more of a history on everything like we did last time. But let's start with this, because I think this is one of the most striking elements to the book that I just started reading. You got to make sure you go to daveasprey.com, because coming out in May, you can pre-order this right now. There's so many great additions and experiences and bonuses you can get just by pre-ordering it there. But make sure you can get it everywhere else, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, all that stuff. But let's talk about this. You talk about the 4Fs a lot: friendship, fear, food, fertility, all these types of things that constantly drive us from a human standpoint.
Right.
But now there's this fifth F that's entering the mix, and it's called forgiveness. And you think this is just such a critical, crucial part to cracking the code when it comes to our mind. Tell us a little bit about that.
Your body processes reality before your brain gets any signal. So there's about a third of a second where stuff happens in the world and your body gets the signal and it holds on to it and says, what should I make the guy upstairs think about? What should I make him feel? And your body, because it's running very simple things like the same stuff that all life, a blade of grass, a bacteria, a slime mold, a politician, any of those things. So no relation. But okay, what's it going to do first? If something is scary, take action. That's fear, right? And if, okay, it's not scary, the next thing, these are all F words, so fear, then food. Can I eat it? Because that's what a bacteria would do. It's what an ant would do, and it's what the cells in your body would do. And they're all rolling up into your consciousness, but they get to tell you before you get any knowledge of what's happening in the world. So fear, food, the next F word, we're going to call it fertility to be polite. So let's stop there for a second. Is there anything you've ever done that you're ashamed of that isn't one of those three things?
Is there anything I've ever done that I have been ashamed of? I mean, probably not. No.
I've never found anyone. And some like procrastination, it's usually fear.
Right.
So, oh my gosh, there's a separate consciousness running your body to keep it alive as if you're not in there. And it runs on very simple rules. So that's kind of dark, except the next F word is friend. Right. So everyone listening to this, you're wired always. If you're not feeling fear and you're not feeling hunger and you're not feeling loneliness, intimate loneliness there, then you go to your community and you give back to your community. It gives back to you. And if you successfully do that and you have some energy left, then forgiveness is how you go back and you make yourself less fearful. So heavily meditated, it's teaching you how to turn fear into peace. Mm-hmm. And some of my other work teaches you how to turn cravings and hunger into nourishment.
Right.
And there's a chapter in Heavily Meditated that just directly says, look, the stuff we do in the bedroom is a source of energy and nourishment and altered states work, as valid as psychedelics or breath work or anything else. So you can turn what's happening in your intimate relationship into something that transforms yourself. And then you turn your community, if you have one, if not, you can build one, into a source of energy as well. Right. So all of a sudden, make more energy with biohacking, be less afraid, have less cravings, have less porn, and what's left is something really beautiful, because now you take care of the world around you and you evolve. And
It's
that's
a
what
lot
forgiveness
like
does.
it's a lot like that construct we hear when we're on a plane and they say, put on your mask before you help others, before you help the small child, because you have to help yourself before you can help others. But
Correct.
there's a lot we got to dive into here. But the forgiveness thing really struck me because I think I'm not a forgiving person, to be honest.
Most people aren't.
You know, most people aren't. And maybe I don't know if it's because of how I was raised, maybe, you know, having grandparents who are Holocaust survivors and having different types of things in our life that just, you know, they're unforgiving types of acts and things. But even on just a stupid level with dating or certain things, there's a lot of times I do not forgive. But I always heard that notion, and everybody's heard this at home, all forgiveness is self-forgiveness. And I just always thought that was such BS. But you're reframing forgiveness in such a great way, because even in the first 30 pages I read of this, I started understanding, yes, this is what I'm talking about. You have a story about your sister stealing from you from a company. And so forgiveness is such a key here, because the way that you're framing it, it's all helping us selfishly from a biochemistry standpoint. So dive into that a little bit.
A lot of people actually get triggered by the idea of forgiveness because forgiveness is dangerous.
Yes.
Right? If a tiger walks into the room and scratches you and you forgive the tiger and it scratches you again, you're an idiot. Right? So let's not do that. So your body is saying, I must keep you safe by making you hold a grudge even when the grudge is costing you enormously.
Right.
So forgiveness is something you do in the body and you trigger it with the mind. And most of us were told when we were little kids, you know, forgive your whatever.
Right.
You cannot forgive by deciding to forgive. Forgiveness is by initiating a feeling in the body. And I have 10 years of data from working with more than 1,000 CEOs and entrepreneurs at my neuroscience facility that does brain upgrades. So I know what meditation steps will cause people to permanently turn off a trigger. So for instance, an easy way to do this, it's called the reset process, is someone cuts you off in traffic. It pisses off almost anybody.
Yeah.
Right? Well, you can run the reset process. There's an 8-step process in the book. And when you're done with that, the next time someone cuts you off in traffic, you just won't care. It does not matter anymore. You lose all the emotion, all the anger, all the pain. Because what's happening, and certainly what happened with me, even in boardrooms, okay? Someone comes in, they say something, and it pisses me off. But because I'm a rational adult, I go, okay, I'm pissed off. I'm not going to show anyone I'm pissed off, and I'm going to smile, right? But everyone knows it's a fake smile. So what we want is we want our leaders and our friends to be congruent, where your inner state matches your outer state and the way you show up in the world. Most of us, though, we're not forgiving. We're holding on to grudges that aren't doing us any good. And that means that we're constantly triggered by things. Right. And if you can be triggered, it means you're carrying a loaded gun. That's what the words mean. It also means I can control you. So if I can make fun of your diet or how you look or how you drive or whatever, and it makes you go, guess what? I made you go, and I don't think you want to do that. So how do you deprogram yourself so that you get to decide how your body responds? This is why I wrote Heavily Meditated. It's the most important thing ever.
And this is really going to change people's lives, and that's why I think it's so critical. I think you do such a great job as a biohacker. I know you're the father of biohacking. You go check Merriam-Webster's dictionary, and you see, you know, it's Dave Asprey's name is right there because you really are the guy that started this movement. And it's so fascinating because I think science, it's such a... For you, in the way that your mind works, you treat yourself as a guinea pig. You put in the work. You do the research, the science-backed stuff. For so many people, it's hard to digest. And you even, in the first 30 pages of this book, you start explaining how our mind works kind of like an orchestra with these, you know, gamma, beta, theta, all these different types of feelings that are kind of like an orchestral sound. And basically this reset process that you're going to put us through is going to have us have a conductor who can manipulate these different waves that are going through our mind, which is such a great... But even the fact that I can understand that, it's like, okay, yes, that makes sense. I think this can work.
It's really weird. Sitting inside our human bodies, the world just doesn't make a lot of sense. But when you look at these ancient practices and then you measure them with science, you realize that they knew something and that science now proves that a lot of this stuff works and some of it doesn't. So after 10 years of looking at people's brainwaves and saying, well, breathe that way and try and do this, People come and spend $20,000 a week at 40 Years of Zen. These are CEOs and celebrities to run the reset process and to train their brains to just turn off all that wasted energy every day on being triggered by stuff that you don't want to be triggered by. And I take the exact same process and I put it in heavily meditated because I want everyone to have access to it. It's better if you have my tech team and engineers and electrodes and all that, but you can do this at home. You can do this at home anytime you want. And if something gets under your skin, you have a mean voice in your head, read the chapter in heavily meditated on the reset process and just do the 8 steps. And the weirdest things will happen because forgiveness is not about telling someone that you forgive them. It's not about saying that what they did was okay. It's about saying that whatever they did no longer has any effect on me.
Right.
It's fully healing. And if you've dealt with situations like narcissism or sociopathy, that kind of behavior over time, it leaves an emotional or even a spiritual wound. It's an injury as important as cutting yourself or a car accident. And you've got to heal from that. And the reset process will let you do that.
I have to do that. We spoke about that last time because last time you were here in the den, I was telling you about a trigger, just getting a text from an ex-girlfriend who possessed, from my therapist that I've heard, possessed some of those traits of, narcissism and, covert narcissism. So some of those traits. So yes, those wounds. And that's why I can't wait to implement this in my life. I think it's just going to be such a game changer because yes, a lot of the things that you've tackled before are super duper important concepts. It's about having a body that's functioning better. There's pictures of you in your 20s and 30s. You have like a Belgian waffle in your hand. You were 300 pounds. You're doing so much. You made it like, in your 20s, $6 million. You lost all this money. You're the first guy to ever sell a product e-commerce wise it was called the intraweb. It was a t-shirt called Caffeine is My Drug of Choice. So you had so much pressure on yourself coming from undergrad to graduate school. You're at Wharton, you're getting your master's, you're working in startups. You worked for a company that was doing the servers for Google. So you had all this pressure and you were striving and succeeding in so many elements of your life, yet you were burnt out. And I think we see a lot of people who are high achievers who are burnt out. They feel older than they are. This is some of the things that I even feel with myself, where it's like, it gets uncomfortable because you're doing so much great work, but at the same time, something is off. And you didn't have the fear to look the other way. You looked within.
Well, I would like to say that I was wise and courageous. I was more desperate because in my mid-20s, I bought disability insurance because my brain just stopped working. I couldn't remember anything. And I was anxious and stressed all the time, but I didn't even know it because that was constant. I was always stressed. And my muscles were always tense. My neck hurt. And I would come home at the end of the day and just say, I have no idea what I just did today. I wouldn't even hire myself and I would just hide it. So I started failing out of Wharton when I'm going to business school. And I finally went to a psychiatrist and got a brain scan. And they're like, you have brain damage from toxins, from mold. And thank God I have a hardware problem. Before that, I just thought maybe I'm just not enough. Maybe I'm dumb, right? And I'm neither one of those. So unpacking all that, I thought, oh, wait. First, I've got to restore the amount of energy my body can produce. How do I make it so I can make abundant energy? And most people today do not make the amount of energy they could. And then I'm like, wait, all of my energy is going into my nervous system responding to criticism or threats or worrying about the future or rehashing the past or family stuff or ex-girlfriend stuff or whatever. So all the worrying. And then the story, I'll be happy when. Like, I'll be happy when I get married. Tried that in my 20s. That didn't work very well. I'll be happy when I get rich. Tried that. Made $6 million. Lost it 2 years later. And, I'll be happy when I'm famous. I'm in Entrepreneur Magazine as the first guy to sell anything over the internet. Nothing. So I'm kind of desperate. Going like, what the heck does it take to be happy and calm and peaceful?
Right.
And that was what led me down this path. And I never talked about this much in the world of biohacking because when I brought butter in coffee and I told people that light matters for your health and that you've got to go take your shoes off and stand outside to electrically ground yourself, all of which is backed by science. And now there's huge amounts of research that supports that. When I came out with it, people were angry. They would call me a quack. I'm like, I'm not even a doctor. Thank you. Like, that's a compliment, right? So all these things were happening and I couldn't easily talk about the role of meditation and particularly altered states work. So I have studied in monasteries and with gurus and leaders of lineages. I've done shamanic training. I've tried all the plant medicines more than once, and I've learned how to do the healing stuff.
Right.
But I didn't want to lead with that because no one would have believed that 10 years ago.
Well, sometimes seeing is believing, and that's why I think so much of the physical components of this really do matter, because, you know, you start to see and then you believe, but it took so much courage. I mean, to put yourself even, you know, on the front lines where people can be critical and can say nasty things online. You know, I'm not a public figure to the degree that you are, but you know, it's not fun for anybody in the society that we live today. But you're giving back in such a beautiful way. And like these tools, these tricks, these ways that we can work smarter and not harder and make a difference in our life. It's a big thing. You work out for 20 minutes a week, you say.
I do use AI for my workouts at Upgrade Labs. So it's not like 20 minutes of just jogging would do that. But yeah, the mind and body will align as well. I did an event 2 weeks ago with the Dalai Lama's best friend, who's been friends with him for 50 years and co-authored books with him. And he said, Dave, you and the Dalai Lama share something. He said, the Dalai Lama seems to be allergic to exercise. So he never exercises, but he's lean and he's in really good shape and he can sit all day. And I think the mind guides the body. And I think that's a part of it. But more importantly, when I do exercise, I'm getting the right signal in. And when I meditate, I'm getting the right signal in. Because you could go for a long run that doesn't do anything, or you could do a few sprints that would give you much better results. Well, what if you could meditate for 2 hours today and then not have time for parenting or your job or whatever? Or you could meditate for 10 minutes using breath work, using another technique, and you would actually get the results you wanted. So it's not about time spent, it's about results achieved. And I wrote Heavily Meditated because I have tried everything. I've spent, God knows, at least $10 million on neuroscience stuff at 40 Years of Zen in order to understand what's going on in my brain. And I've monitored every part of my body, and I've tried all the breath works, and I've tried all but 2 of the plant medicine things. And I have gone and met gurus all over the planet. Let's go into this altered state. Let's do this. So this is the list of all the things you can do and why. Because healing is an altered state. High performance is an altered state. Focus is an altered state. Flow is an altered state. And we'll say communion with the universe is an altered state. And all of those, there are known techniques that have been written down since at least the 13th century in cave meditation instructions telling humans how to do that. And we just don't know. And we think, I'll just meditate. That's like saying, I'll just eat. Are you eating McDonald's or are you eating a salad?
Right.
It's not the same food. I just want people to know if you're going to spend 5 minutes on improving yourself from a mental or emotional or spiritual thing, do this for you to get the results.
Get the most bang for your buck. So let's talk about this. So somebody at home, you know, they love you. They love all the things you've done in the past, right? So now they're like, okay, Heavily Meditated is out. I've never meditated in my entire life, but I really am on board for what everything Dave is saying. How can I do this? So tell us a little bit about how that works. Because I think there's a lot of people who think, okay, meditation is, you know, if you're, you know, a pop star living in Los Angeles, but I'm just a mom of 4 who shops at Trader Joe's, but could really, I struggle with anxiety. I'm overwhelmed. I have all these feelings. So I just have basic problems of a regular human being, a regular person, a regular mom of 4, a regular dad. What can I do from this book? So give us some examples of how we can, like a tangible thing even right now.
Let's say that you notice there's times, maybe when you're going to sleep, maybe when your 2-year-old is just constantly saying no. By the way, there's a hack for that. Just tell your 2-year-old.
You wrote a baby book too.
I did. Tell your 2-year-old, we don't say yes. And watch their little brain like go into little convulsions as they go, if I say no, then I'm doing what she wanted. And then they'll say yes instead of no. So anyway, but it's really stressful, to be honest, as a parent with 2 teenagers now. Parenting is one of the most stressful things because you just say the same thing over and over. And any adult brain, So how do you get over that? You could say, I'm going to go light some candles and some incense. I'm going to sit down and visualize the Buddha. And then, no, mommy, like it doesn't work. So here's the thing. Breath work accelerates altered states for meditation reliably. And in heavily meditated, there's 3 buckets of breath work. One of them is to take you out of stress and overwhelm, and I'll show you that one right now. And one is to be more alert and grounded, and the other one is to go into deep altered states like you've taken some psychedelics.
Okay.
And it's all breath work. Which one's the right one? Well, this is the one that's going to get you out fastest. And science has showed us that if you breathe in, say for 4 seconds, so just breathe in right now, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then hold it for 2, and you're going to breathe out for 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You do that 3 times. Having the out breath twice as long as the in breath has a very profound effect on your nervous system. It'll flip you from sympathetic fight or flight out of that first fear word into parasympathetic, which is peace, calmness. It's a big deal. Right?
So it's, and I love the details, because the thing is, there's a lot of guys out there who have written books on meditation, 10% happier. A lot of people are trying to do, there's a lot of these meditation books. But the thing is, a lot of times you don't even get the nuggets of just like, hey, you got to breathe out for 8 seconds and you can breathe in for 4. But those, those distinct differences make all the difference, right?
There are at least 50,000 meditation books out there. And they all say very similar things. And I'm not knocking any of the authors. In fact, Dan Harris from 10% Happier meditated with me in my backyard when he did a segment with me on Nightline about me using a cognitive enhancer called modafinil. So, I love, in fact, many of these people are friends. The difference is that instead of recycling meditation stuff, heavily meditated, it's new knowledge. It's explaining why your body is doing what it does. And it's rational, and it makes sense when you understand that the body is separate from the mind. And then, yes, there are some types of breath work that have been written about and other things, but it's also, here's the menu of options to dial up the state you want. And the most precious part of the book, you would spend $20,000 up till now for that, and that is the reset process.
Right.
And the reset process takes, about 10 minutes to do. And that's where you find a specific thing that pushes your buttons and you go and you turn that off. It's a very different meditation than the one we just did, which is let's drop you out.
So the first one is more for triggers. You're saying a reset can actually be something like from your past, something you want to uncover.
Let's say that, Susie in high school broke your heart.
Yeah.
Okay. This happens to most people in high school.
Right.
It's the nature of being in high school, right? Most people are still carrying that crap around with them. And you're in a relationship 10 years later, and your partner says something that kind of sounded like little Susie. And without your knowledge or permission, your body starts feeling unsafe. Okay? It's not because you're weak. It's not because you didn't think about it. It's because it's your body doing it. It's not your mind. And your body was so wrecked by your first breakup that it felt like that could be dangerous. Don't do that again. Right? And it stops you from being close to your partner. Right? So maybe what you should do is run the reset process here and go back to what you experienced at that time when you had your first breakup, and you should tell your nervous system that it's okay, so that it won't keep doing that every single time you get close to someone for the rest of your life.
Wow. It's monumental stuff. And that's why that's what's the dichotomy of you is so great, because you have this beautiful duality where you're such a high achiever, you're so unique and different, and just being in your space and in your aura, you're so different. But at your core, you're just like everybody else, and you really understand the plight of a typical guy like me. Like, you really do. Like, that's why I think it's nice, because a lot of times you're tackling meditation, you're tackling these, cloudy ideas that for most people, it's hard to just even understand and figure out a way that they're even going to make an impact in your life. But you really can bring it back and say, okay, these are lofty goals, but they're actually very tangible, things you can implement. And at the same time, they're really tackling the basic human issues that everybody shares.
We all share them. And I think what makes me a good entrepreneur is capacity for suffering. I mean, and I'm not the first person to say that. Elon Musk says, being an entrepreneur is like, staring into the abyss and eating glass. Right. And things like that, just because you end up dealing with a lot of problems. And there's a lot of personal stuff in here, stuff that I've dealt with. that would have broken most people had I not had the reset process.
Yeah, you're very raw. You talk about divorce, you talk about your sister, stealing from you and all these things, but you just have a great way of reframing. So back to the forgiveness thing, because one of the things you were talking about in here, and that's why everybody has different issues that kind of inform the way that they act through life. And one of the best things that you're talking about in here is that imagine, me, I'm just waking up every day and it's a toss up whether my brain is going to be good to me that day and if it's going to be a good day. You're saying with a lot of the practices in this book, you're actually able to, you're going to reset so much of your biochemistry, so much of the way you think and your brain treats it yourself that you can just know you're going to have a good day because of the practices you're going to put forth.
And if it's going in the wrong direction, it's not going to freak you out. It's funny. I have a good number of followers who get a sleep tracker and they develop fear of having a bad night's sleep.
Right.
Right. So you're going to be tired anyway, but now your fear over being tired makes you more tired. And when I when I had a very, very young age, just realized my nervous system is all over the place. I realized it because I had technology to measure it. I was in my mid-20s.
Right.
And I realized I was going into fight or flight mode dozens of times a day without even knowing it. And I developed the ability to feel it. And what the heck? Each time your body goes into stress mode, it's taking energy that could have gone into willpower. So I was flipping into fear dozens of times a day and wasting energy. And I wasn't making enough energy, right? And I was constantly craving food because I was under the belief that eating fewer calories and eating less fat would somehow make me lose weight, which never happened. And it doesn't really work that way for most people. But between the hunger and cravings and the constantly feeling fear, I wasn't thinking fear. I knew I was safe, but my body didn't.
Right.
Right. And so there just was no energy left. Right. So what I want people to understand is if you wake up and you feel like crap, maybe you could do some biohacking things that help you make more energy. Or today, even though you're not feeling great, you can just not worry about it. And telling someone don't worry is the meanest thing you can do because you don't think about not worrying.
Right.
You feel about not worrying. And most people don't realize you can play any feeling you've ever experienced in your nervous system, just like a Spotify list.
The connection between feeling and thinking. And, that's, and I keep coming back to the forgiveness thing. We think forgiveness is a thought, but it's really a feeling. And that's why so many of these things are so beautiful. But so one of my honest evaluations about myself as I was reading through the book is overthinking. I think you can tell. I mean, the amount of notes I have on Dave Asprey here, I'm an overthinker, ladies and gentlemen. And, but that is an issue for people in terms of getting you out of that state. So for me, when I was going through all the list of, ways that maybe I'm getting myself into a funk, I think it's the overthinking is a big part of my identity. So if you were evaluate me, tell me why. Sure. Tell me why.
100% of the time when people overthink, it's out of fear. Right. And remember, this is not fear that is chosen, and it's actually fear that's irrational to our logical brains. To your body, it's just saying there is a vague threat. It could have come from the way you were born. It could have come from your lineage. Your parents had some really scary stuff in the Holocaust, right?
Right. Grandparents. Yeah.
Grandparents, yeah. So that stuff can come down generationally. So if the body's like, there's a vague sense of doom, or maybe you've just been using too much social media, they'll do it too. But if that's happening out there, what are you to do? Well, there's nothing to fight. Like, there's no threats here. So go into the brain, start thinking. And the funny thing is I did exactly that. I didn't know there was any signal below my neck in my 20s. I could just think my way out of anything because I'm pretty smart until my brain stopped working. Then what I've since realized, the reason I can write these books, it's when I don't think that I know.
A more flow state. And it's the same with me. But let me ask you this, because, I love you. I love your work. Your stuff means so much to me. And I appreciate the fact that you're taking your time to come here and promote with us where you can be everywhere in the world. So I want to do a good job for you. I want to do a good job for myself, but it's like I want to rise to the occasion. So I think from being as successful as you are, that sometimes that fear, it gives you a little bit of an edge, and that's why I think for me, I think one of my big issues here, and that's why selfishly I want to ask you, is like, I think so much of my fear and these issues drive me, and it's hard for me to relinquish that aspect to myself, because I've seen how having a little bit of a chip on your shoulder can help you get ahead. It keeps you sharp. It keeps you wanting. It keeps you not being lazy. I could have showed up today and just, I'm going to wing it with Dave, you know? But I feel like sometimes that fear, some of those negative things are necessary for success, but you're telling us that they don't have to be. What do you feel about
I love it that you've noticed this about yourself.
It's not
and
good.
With more than 1,000 entrepreneurs coming through 40 Years of Zen, this is maybe the most common thing. Like, why would I want to set down a grudge? That grudge is energy.
Yes.
Well, if you use anger as a fuel source, it'll burn you up. But it's a great spark to light a fire.
Yeah.
Right? And so you're saying, all right, I feel angry about this, right? Or I feel fear about this.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Now you're going to think about it and you're going to say, what do I want to do? Problem is, if you're feeling it, all of your thoughts are filtered through the fear first. You can't even see reality when you're angry. So you're going to be a dick. That's what happens, right? Everyone knows you have a chip on your shoulder, right? And at the same time, if you can remove anger and you can remove all of the emotion around something, now you can be calculating. And you can choose what you do. But if I'm making you angry,
you're out of control.
No, I'm in control if I make you angry.
But you're out of right. If you're letting that and you're surrounded constantly. So many people love your insights on things. Guys like Nick Foles, Super Bowl winning quarterback with the Eagle, like all these. So there's a lot of high achieving people, athletes, people who come to 40 Years of Zen, and you really can help them, because I think a lot of athletes would feel like, I need this edge to perform on the field. I need to think like I'm John Wick out for revenge or Jason Statham, but it's the energy source there. It's not infinite, because at a certain point that's gonna
that sucks stuff out of you. It's funny you mentioned Nick. If you meet Nick, he's one of the gentlest, kindest, most giving human beings.
Yeah.
He takes care of his team. I mean, if there was a real life Superman character, that would be him. So he's not motivated by that. He's motivated by service to God.
Yeah.
So I went through the same thing in my 20s. I'm like, if I just have enough money, I'll be happy and I'll be free. Then I'll be safe, and I'll show all the bullies and all that stuff. It's not real. And so many of the people who've been through 40 Years of Zen. One guy runs a 1,200 person call center company, my friend Craig, and he posted on Facebook. He said, I just realized all my success is because I was bullied in 7th grade.
So is that good or bad?
It's terrible.
But I'm sure he made a ton of money.
He made and lost money same way I have, and he suffered a huge amount. And when I made the switch from I'm going to do this because it's grasping energy to I have a mission, I have a purpose, I have a reason, you can push your way, you can fight your way towards something, or you can be pulled.
Do you think you need to have the success first for the wrong reasons, then you can reframe? Or can you actually go in with the right reasons from the get-go and achieve that success?
All of the anger that you think is a fuel source is actually friction. And it's chaos, and it creates delusions about the world in you.
Yeah.
When someone who has the unusual wisdom at 20 years old to start doing this kind of work, it's like the universe just unfolds for them. All the friction just goes away. And that's what people report after doing the reset process at 40 Years of Zen. Like, everything is easier because there's so much freed up energy in your life. And this is when serendipity starts to happen. And I mentioned I've done shamanic training. I've done all kinds of esoteric practice. There's validity to that stuff.
No, 100%. I'm consistently, perpetually impressed with your ability to let go and to let go of things that are even positives. You go into this chiropractor's office in the beginning of the book, and just to look within yourself, it takes so much courage, because most people who are average people like me, they like who they are. They haven't done too many bad things. They've gotten to
most people hate who they are. Are you kidding?
Well,
like shame and guilt are so common in people.
I think a lot of people, from a normal standpoint, they exist in traditional everyday lives.
Yeah.
They feel like my life could be a little better, or my life or my life could be a lot worse. But it takes a lot of courage to, as you get older, to keep investing and thinking and looking into yourself, looking into the mirror in a harsh light. You discovered at a very late age that you were on the spectrum, and it unfolded and it created a entirely new existence for yourself. So I think a lot of people, I know my personal barriers, like I know if I digest this book and implement it in practice, my life is going to change for the better.
Yeah.
But how do you help people get over that hump of wanting it to change? Because sometimes people, even though they know it's going to be better, they don't do the things they know they need to do. So I think it's a powerful thing, but help us a little, because that's your superpower. To me, I think, who in their right mind would think, I'm already getting a master's at Wharton, I've made $6 million. Like most people in today, whatever generation it is, would think my don't stink. That's what they would think, right? Even though you're drained of energy, all these types of things, you would go to external sources to fuel whatever insecurities were there. But you consistently, throughout your life, double down and get to the root of these issues. So I think, yes. Have I made 6 million and lost 6 million? No. Have I worked in startups, Silicon Valley? No, I haven't maybe operated at this level, but for most people like me, just to take a little bit of a better step, it's still scary, and you have to let go of the life that you've already created for yourself that you feel okay about.
You know, we have this story that people who are really successful don't have that same stuff. I've sat with more billionaires than I can count who start crying. We're all dealing with the same stuff. It's the I'm not enough. It's the what if I let people down? What if there are untrustworthy people who are going to try to betray me? All of this consistently. It doesn't matter if you have money or you don't. It doesn't matter if you have a family or you don't. These are basic things our bodies do to keep us alive. It's neurotic worry, and it's built into your hardware. And imagine you have a Labrador retriever, big floppy dog comes in. Okay, it pees on the couch, it drools on everything, it eats all your food, it barks, and just shreds your place.
Yeah.
That same dog, you train it for 6 months, and it comes back, and it's a service dog, and you put a piece of popcorn on its nose, and it sits there for 10 minutes until you tell it it can eat. Your nervous system is that Labrador retriever, right? So your brain is constantly thinking about stuff and trying to manage it, but it's doing all this floppy stuff. What Heavily Meditated is about is saying you can make your nervous system and these invisible parts of your body into a service dog for you so that they will serve you and they'll stop creating chaos.
Right.
And when that happens, whether you're a billionaire or not, then suddenly you're not feeling shame about something that happened in the past at all. You're not feeling anything negative about it. You remember everything, but it doesn't matter. And I've worked with people who've been physically tortured. Right. And they come in like, I was tortured and it was a big deal. And when they're done, they go, yeah, I was tortured. And I would really like for that to not happen again. But they're not feeling the pain every time they think about it. And most of us unconsciously, we're feeling the pain of our childhood. We're feeling the pain of, a breakup. We're feeling the pain of a failure, of a loss, and we replay it over and over and over. And it's not even our brain replaying it. It's our body replaying it to manipulate the brain into making sure it doesn't happen again because it hurt that time. Yeah. We just have to stop doing that. It's our biggest flaw as a species is that we just keep ruminating on all this crap and then we keep acting as if it's real. The real reason you're pissed off when someone cuts you off in traffic is because you felt disrespected. And when was the first time you felt disrespected? It was probably sometime in grade school or maybe even earlier, depending on your parenting. So you're just echoing that same thing over and over and over until you're saying, that's a dumb program. It's the same thing. You pick up your phone and you let the alerts from every app go off. And you're like, TikTok, text message, email, bing bong. You can't even use your phone. So you turn off all the alerts. No one has ever written a book about how to turn off the alerts in your nervous system so that you can just be present. That's what's in Heavily Meditated.
I think, you've done so much important work throughout your career. I think this is going to be your most important work yet, because I really think this is groundbreaking in the sense that we're finally able to combine the body, the soul, all these things, the tangible, the stuff that feels intangible. Now we're finally bringing the mind and body together here in Heavily Meditated. You got to make sure you go to daveasprey.com. There's so many bonuses and great experiences, offers if you just pre-order there. But of course, you can always go to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all those great kind of places. I do want to go through a quick rundown of a couple things with you that are just more gripping headlines and things I always see about you, which I love, because you also got to make sure you follow Dave, because there's just even little tips and tricks you got, even if you're trying to spark testosterone or different types of things. So you got to make sure you do that. The Human Upgrade podcast, there's so much great stuff. Danger Coffee, the Yak Butter, all the stuff that you figured out and cracked the code on such a long time ago. Before I get to a few of these just rapid fire questions, I just want to ask you one last time. So for me, overthinking, neurotic, just give me your take on me. And once I'm going to text you after I'm done reading this, and I'm going to start implementing these things, and I'm going to see changes happen. But I want you to just give me a prediction right now. Tell me the stage. You know me a little bit now, Mike Davis, being here a couple times. Tell me what my biggest issues you think really are. And I'm not fearful of hearing this. I really want to know these things. So just tell me what you read about me and what you think the biggest differences in my life are going to happen once I really digest this and implement it in my life.
You already know what it is. It's that you're living most of your life in your head, probably 80% from what I'm picking up. And you're actually in your body. So if you were to fully connect with all the systems in your body, and when I said that, your body tightened up. Like, how dare you look in here? What's going on is there's a separate consciousness inside your body, and it is designed to keep the body alive the same way a deer or a frog or anything else does, like without you in there. And the consciousness of your body comes from your mitochondria, and it hates that your brain keeps messing with it. So it's like, how do I manipulate the brain to do this? And the easiest way to manipulate our brain is with fear. So when I said you want to get more in your body's like, don't you dare look in here. And it gave you a little spike of fear, and you felt it, right?
Yeah.
Right? That's what's going on. It's just trying to manipulate you. The good news is you are much smarter than your body.
Yeah.
But your body is much faster than you, and it gets to play first.
Right.
Right? So you can train the body, and you're saying, no, I'm going to go in there, and you'll actually learn how to take all the energy that you put in your head, and you can put it in your heart. You can put it in your gut. You can put it a little bit further down. You can actually move that anywhere inside your body. And when you do that, that awareness happens, which is different from thinking. And it is incredibly peaceful. And it allows you to, say, connect with your partner and to just drop into your body and leave your mind. And having a good mind is useful. I mean, I write books. I do a lot of stuff with my mind. But I'm not doing it with stress.
Right.
And the funny thing is, if I'm on a show like this, or I'm on stage with Tony Robbins or somebody, and my brain doesn't know what to say, I just relax, and my body knows, and it just appears.
Right.
And we already all know everything.
Yeah.
If we can just get out of our own way. And I'm not saying I'm the world's best at that. I'm just better than I used to be, and it's a continuous practice. So for you, it's slow down the mind.
Yeah.
And to feel safe while you slow down the mind. So you're going to run the reset process. I think that's in chapter 8, if I remember right.
Okay.
And you're going to say, when's the first time I really felt that I had to have my mind going in order to be safe or to feel loved? It's probably in school when you were young. It could have been with parenting, right?
Yeah, I think more school.
School, right? So I certainly had a bunch of that. And so you're going to go back to the first time. It'll just pop into your head, and you're going to run the reset process after you practice a couple easy ones. And it'll be on, Miss whatever her name was, the teacher who, yelled at you for whatever. And when you're done with that, I go, that's really weird. But I don't feel like I need to do that anymore.
Okay. I can't wait till you see me the next time. And
I can't either.
When I'm really implementing these practices and doing that, because you're spot on. Okay, so a few rapid fire things here. So, and once again, I just love the way your perspective on things is so healthy, because you're a high achiever. You're moving the boundaries on so many things in our life, but there's a lot of imitators and people that try to be like you, but they just are so off by a little bit, and you're constantly coming up with things. So you've stated many times you want to live past 180, right? 180 years old. You want to live past that. Now, there's this dude out here, Brian or something, who's been putting all his, resources and stuff into de-aging and all these things, but you had such a poignant way of really looking at the heart of the matter. And it wasn't like, hey, I want to live past 180, but it's not about not dying. It's not about, trying to evade death. It's more so about living a life where you have the wisdom of age, but you also have your youth in your body and that vitality. So tell us a little bit about the 180 thing. So you want to live past 180. What is that actually like? That you actually fully
I'm serious about that. Yeah.
So what is that actually? How does that come to be? What does that look like? And do you actually think you're going to achieve it?
I want to be clear. I'm friends with Brian Johnson, and we don't agree on everything. I think at some point he's going to be less vegan than he is, but maybe not. Maybe I'll become more vegan again. I don't think so. So whatever. I'm always happy for there to be more voices in the longevity movement, and longevity is a core part of biohacking. And I spent $2 million to reverse my age by 20 years. And that was my big longevity book. So Brian and I have some commonalities, and we also have some differences. The biggest one, though, is energetic here.
Yeah.
There's a story about Mother Teresa, and it might be in the book. I might have cut it out. I don't remember. And in the 60s, some peace activists said, "Hey, Mother Teresa, will you join the rally against the war?" And she said, "No." And like, "What do you mean?" And she said, "I'll join a rally for peace, but I won't join a rally against the war." Because when you fight against something, it makes it stronger. This is why when Google, when it was founded, back when they were two guys and two computers, and we were working with them, their motto, "Don't be evil." Well, your nervous system processes that as be evil, and look what's happened, right? And so I believe that if you're saying don't forget your shoes to your kids, they're just going to hear forget your shoes. Right. And that means if you say something like don't die, that it actually has a negative energetic in it. Now, as a computer scientist, I'd say that's ridiculous. I'm very certain that our nervous system, it is a little computer in there, but it's not a digital computer, and it doesn't process the negative very well. So I would just say, live as long as you choose with the quality of life you choose.
Yeah.
My real goal, I'd like to die at a time and by a method of my choice. And 180, I think, is eminently achievable and isn't even a stretch. So I said that because if I said I think I could live hundreds of years when I wrote my longevity book about 6-7 years ago, people wouldn't have believed it. But 180, it's very rational. We can do 120 today, and I want to do 50% better. I have AI. I have antibiotics. I can spell DNA, and I know what a mitochondria is. A person who's 120 years old today, World War I was fought with horseback. Like they had a few biplanes.
Progress. Yeah. Our world has changed a lot. It really is a fascinating thing. Listen, if there's anybody who can do it, it's you. Okay, another thing, rapid fire. This ejaculation journal you had. So what was the reason behind this, and what were the results? Because I think a lot of people talk about this, but it's one of the things I always see about you, but I want to ask you about it.
Well, one of the things I do with biohacking is I look at ancient practices and figure out why they work and whether they work. And there's an ancient Taoist practice that says, if you want to live forever, don't ejaculate all the time. Like you can have sex, you can have orgasms, just don't ejaculate. This sounds like the dumbest thing ever. I'm going to disprove it. Yeah. So I tracked my daily happiness and my ejaculation. I tried their equations and all this stuff for a whole year, and I published the data in my book, Game Changers. And there's very clear evidence that for men only, when we ejaculate, that it does negative things for your health if you do it frequently. And some people get very angry, and they're hearing, because of the filters from their egos, they're hearing me say, Dave says don't have sex. No. Make love all the time. If you don't ejaculate, you'll make more love. Just to be really straightforward. So I'm telling you to have more sex.
Just don't masturbate? Is that what you're saying?
It doesn't matter if you masturbate or you have sex. Just don't ejaculate. Right? And you're saying, what? Here's what happens when a guy ejaculates. And it's actually the act of, removing that fluid from the body. Your testosterone drops for 24 to 48 hours.
Well, that's why a lot of boxers, for a couple months, they won't, it's always been something they talk about with fighters.
It's real. And there's another hormone called prolactin, and that spikes. And prolactin makes you lethargic, tired, and apathetic. So you're low T and you're high prolactin, and then that famous, will you respect me in the morning? No, he's probably not going to respect you in the morning because he just completely screwed up his hormones that keep him motivated and young by ejaculating. If instead he would have said, you know what? If I don't have lunch, I won't die. It's okay. And if he'd have taught himself, if I don't ejaculate, I'll just make love for 2 hours and we're going to go to really exalted places. And that's way more fun than making a mess really quick. And that's why in the book, in Heavily Meditated, there's a chapter on using sex the same way you use psychedelics for healing and for deep altered states work. So here's the deal, guys. You can do whatever you want to do. I'm just saying that you're going to drop your testosterone and raise your prolactin. So you're better off to say, you know what? I can have sex anytime I want, and whether I ejaculate or not is irrelevant because I did the work to learn how to have full body orgasms without ejaculating. And you can do that.
That's just, it's the stuff. I mean, it's just amazing.
That makes people so mad, Mike. It's so funny.
And that's why I think it's just, I love how you're constantly trying to improve, trying to discover. You're an adventurer, you know, and you have an adventurous spirit, and it's such a beautiful thing. Listen, Heavily Meditated. You got to make sure you go to daveasprey.com, pre-order the book. There's so many great bonuses, experiences, and offers if you pre-order there, but the book's coming out May. It's going to be so exciting to finally, see what we can achieve where we're using the biohacking, applications that you've taught us for so many years now, but now we're finally going to be able to marry it with the mind. And I think that's going to be such a beautiful thing. Real quickly, Dave, any last things you want to make sure our audience knows? I know we got the biohacking conference coming up in Austin as well, right?
Yeah, May 28th, 29th, 30th in Austin. Go to biohackingconference.com. Joe Dispenza will be there. Steve Aoki is playing a live set for just people at the conference. And James Nestor, who's written one of the biggest books on breath work, and Ryan Holiday from the Stoic thing, and a bunch of other, everything longevity, 120 vendors, and the kind of people you want to build community with. So this is my most fun event of the year. It's biohackingconference.com. And when you pick up Heavily Meditated, you go to daveasprey.com for this, you can get a $200 course from my partners at One Commune that's a part of this. So it's totally worth picking up the book right now.
It's so great. He spent 6 months with electrodes on his head. He went to Tibet. He went to Nepal. He went to the Andes. He spent time with monks. He knows all these great things that we can do to implement and change our life. And guess what? We're going to be able to do it smarter and not harder. And I can't wait for Dave to see me next time.
Can't wait either.
What I'm going to be like. And I think it's going to be a game changer, certainly for myself. And I think for so many of you at home. Dave, thanks for spending so much great time with us. Make sure you go check out Heavily Meditated Human Upgrade Podcast, all the great things Dave does, as well as Danger Coffee. Dave, until next time, we appreciate you being here in the den for Dry Heat.
Thank you for having me on again, Mike.